The year is 1981. Rajneesh and his followers, known as the Neo-Sannyasins, flee from India due to tax fraud and their chaotic following from the United States, which had much hate in the eyes of the Indian public. Months after Rajneesh and his followers have fled from India and scoured the US, they find the Big Muddy Ranch, former farm territory in the middle of the countryside of Oregon. And when they buy this territory to make their perfect commune, they find their first form of opposition from the US, the 1,000 Friends of Oregon. In response to Rajneesh's sudden appearance in the middle of the countryside of Oregon, the 1,000 Friends of Oregon filed a lawsuit against Rajneesh and the Neo-Sannyasins. In response to this lawsuit made by the 1,000 Friends of Oregon, Sheila of the Neo-Sannyasins and Rajneesh's right-hand woman went to work against the 1,000 Friends of Oregon. The first course of action that she tried against the 1,000 Friends was just to simply talk with them. Hey, could you please stop their lawsuits? You know, just normal things. Well, the 1,000 Friends said, hey, okay, we see your intent, but no, we can't. We have a justification for this. We think you could be a possible threat to the environment of Oregon. Sheila didn't like this, so she left and came back with money and said, hey, bribery works, right? She didn't say it to their face, but we all know what happens. So they said no again, and then she got mad. At this time, the cult was fairly big. They had a media presence, and with that, she insulted the 1,000 Friends of Oregon relentlessly. Now, regardless of what you think of the 1,000 Friends of Oregon and this little fiasco, you have to agree, it's fairly ridiculous seeing this. But we're not done yet. In fact, the show has just begun, ladies and gents, because let's move on. Regardless of the madness of moving into Oregon and running into some neighbors that they didn't like, the commune, Rajneeshpuram, was built. And with that came a new problem. You see, if 1,000 Friends won their lawsuit, Rajneeshpuram would be torn down, and that is not what they want, since they got kicked out of India once before, and now they're going to get kicked out of America? Hell no. So what's the next thing to do? Oh, that's right. Let's focus on a small town of only 40 people, Antelope, Oregon. Antelope was going to be the site of one of their factories, a book-producing factory to help spread the word of Rajneesh to the world. And with that, the community of Antelope recognized the cult and said, oh hell no, we can't allow you to stay here. Get out! And what they did was they tried to vote them out. They did an emergency vote within the year of 1982, and due to lax voting laws, the Rajneeshi won. They stopped the vote, they moved in, and as time went on, they slowly converted the town into full-on Rajneeshi. They got rid of the native citizens of Antelope, and guess what they renamed it to? Rajneesh! Ah, what a humble man he is. I bet we all aspire to be as good as Rajneesh. Near the end of 1982, a police force was made within the commune due to rising threats and paranoia against the cult. In the year 1983, Hotel Rajneesh is bombed by an extremist Islamic cult member, which only helps increase the paranoia of the outside world within the Neo-Sannyasin cult. Within the spring of 1984, the cult buys an arsenal of weaponry, ranging from handguns to semi-automatic rifles and even scouting helicopters. The only thing that they're not allowed to buy are automatic rifles. And just declining from that, the majority of the cult is actually fairly docile, but Sheila, the right hand of Rajneesh, is not. So, what happens if a cult member wants to leave the cult? Well, if Sheila finds out, she gets the member tranquilized and sedated for days to even weeks on end until they give up their will to even leave the cult. They do leave eventually, though, in secrecy. But there is one case that stands out to me that should be mentioned. A cult member, simply by the name of Soumya, sends a letter to Rajneesh just saying, hey, I think Sheila's a bad person. Sheila, throughout her paranoia, intercepts this letter, reads it, and then thinks the most justified punishment for sending this letter is to remove Soumya's uterus. And the paranoia just doesn't stop there. 1984, a new group of people joined the commune. The Hollywood people, a minor cult, and a cult that isn't really important to the story other than the fact that Sheila bugged everything in the commune. Telephones, books, everything, just so then she knows that no one's plotting against her and Rajneesh. Oh, and if you are a problematic citizen of this commune, guess what you are diagnosed with? AIDS! But you weren't. It was a false diagnosis, but regardless of what happens, you were sent to the nursing facility and treated for your ailment, only to be made sicker and sicker and sicker. So then you couldn't speak up, so you couldn't fight back, and you were forced to work in terrible conditions. Throughout all the madness of the mid-'80s, a lab was made on the commune, and this was Sheila's and Pooja's personal lair. What did they do with this lab? Well, they created the live salmonella cultures used in the second largest bioterrorist attack in U.S. history. But first, they had some tests. The first test was done on 3 government officials, which visited the commune to make sure that construction was going fine. Out of the 3 that were poisoned, a government official would have died if he wasn't admitted into the hospital in time. With the success of the first test, Sheila and a trusted group of friends went out into the Oregonian public and spread the live salmonella cultures on toilet seats and vegetable aisles within grocery stores. If anything happened, we don't know, for there was no report of any poisonings happening from their second test. Oh, we're here, ladies and gents! It's time for the second largest bioterrorist attack in U.S. history! Woo! The reason why is to stop an election in its tracks. You want to know what they did to Antelope? They're gonna do it to Oregon, baby! Yeah! And with that came a simple 3-step plan. Have one of their members infiltrate and run for the election. The second step was voter fraud. And the third step, poison everyone. And with that, step 3 was enacted a few days before the election of Oregon. And guess what? They struck buffets, and more specifically, salad bars, and their dressing. And, oh, let's see the numbers, ladies and gents. How many people got poisoned? It was 751 people. You want to know how many people died? None. With their grand master plan of the second largest bioterrorist attack in U.S. history backfiring on them, everything also backfired. Their hidden member that was in the election was exposed. Their voter fraud exposed. Their largest bioterrorist attack to deter voters? It did the opposite, ladies and gents. More voters came to vote against them. And with that came the spiral. Everything came falling down on them. They tried to burn a building out of desperation in 1985. They tried to assassinate a former member that was suing them in 1985. And they tried to assassinate a government official who was recovering from a surgery in 1985. Every single one of those attempts failed. And they tried some more assassinations. But guess what? They failed. In fact, one time, even the assassins got backfired on them. Okay? Like the other times, they were okay. They came out like, oh, we failed at our mission, but at least we're okay. But one time, the assassins ended up getting poisoned themselves. And after that, there is one final plan which I wish to see, just because of morbid curiosity. They wanted to fly a plane full of explosives into the building that they tried to burn down months before. That was their grand master plan, okay? Okay, I just needed to get that off my chest because, oh my god, it's ridiculous. Anyway, after all that, Rajneesh and the cult disperses. They all run, they go, because guess what? The U.S. government is after everyone. Sheila, she runs out of country. Rajneesh, he tries to get to Bermuda. He gets caught. Sheila, she gets deported back into America. They both get tried, and Sheila, she gets 2 years in jail out of her 20-year sentence, gets let out for good behavior, and she just buggers off to the middle of Europe. And Rajneesh, well, he just gets kicked out, to my knowledge, back to India, and he changes his name to Osho and creates the modern-day meditation centers of Osho. He dies 5 years later after this event.